Come join us each week as we dive into topics about the joys and the struggles of motherhood. By no means are we experts. We're practically flying by the seat of our pants, or should I say, mom jeans. On this podcast, you will find a judgment-free zone where we discuss not only the best parts of being a mom, but the not-so-glamorous parts too. You can expect unfiltered, real mom talk, humor, grace, and a sense of sisterhood. What makes our podcast unique is that we understand there's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to being a mother. We're not going to pretend that we know everything too, because we definitely don't. We just want a place to share our stories with you. Thank you so much for tuning in to Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood.
Welcome back to Mom Jeans, the podcast. Today we have Tonya on, and she is going to talk to us about pediatric sleep, and we're so excited. Obviously, we each have kids ourselves, and we have a lot of questions, and we're so excited to talk to you today, Tonya.
Before we get into it, happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. You know, we got to celebrate this weekend with ours, which was great. You know, thank you to those guys who show up in our life. And you listen to our 20th episode, we talk about some of our favorite things about our partners and however that person is to you. So just wanted a quick moment to do that before we dive in.
Absolutely. Happy Father's Day. We're going to start with our high-low of the week. Michelle, you want to kick off your high-low of this week?
Oh my gosh, sure. Yeah, it has been a busy week. This really was not planned, but my high and low of the week is going to be sleep related, because why I'm so excited for this episode today is just like sleep is something we think about all day, every day with our children. And for me, I didn't expect sleep to be such an internal battle myself. And I specifically have struggles with nap time versus bedtime. But this week, my high lows are both related to bedtime. So she's been going down just fine. But last week, it was just a week of lots of wake ups and then the early morning calls and then really upset. I think she was kind of going through something. So it was just one of those weeks. She's 15 months, so there's probably teeth involved. There's probably regression. Who knows, right? But then Father's Day came around and Ryan goes, Sierra, all I want for Father's Day is for you to sleep through the night. And so that was my high. She crushed it the last 2 nights and she's back on track. So we're in a good spot. So it's crazy how much like your own night sleep affects your sanity the next day. So those are my high lows.
Nice. Awesome. Tonya, when you want to go into yours?
Absolutely. Also a really busy week for me. I have been talking to quite a few new clients this week, so definitely a high. Absolutely love that piece of my job, really. My low kind of piggybacks on that, though, right? I mean, I have 2 littles. I'm also in corporate America, so I am extremely busy, and so finding that time to not have that mom guilt of, am I giving myself, to my children? Am I enough? Did I do enough with them today? That's something I definitely have struggled with this week for sure, but it's part of it, right?
Yeah. Empathize with that tremendously. Every day, it's that question. Am I doing enough?
Absolutely.
Yep. And then, so I guess, my high of the week is Aubrey is now 7 months and she is learning. She's rolling like crazy and she doesn't have a clue how to crawl and she doesn't even look close, but she like knows she wants to get somewhere. So she just rolls to where she needs to get to. And she knows how to like turn herself into like 90 degrees and 180s so that she can then roll to whatever it is she needs. And it's just adorable. And like daycare all the time is like, it's so funny because we'll like look away and she'll be on the other side of the room because she just rolled all the way over there. And it just makes me laugh so much. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's very, very cute. So so that's definitely my high. And then I don't know if I'd call this a low as much of it's like, again, mom guilt. I have made the decision to stop breastfeeding and have moved over to formula and kind of doing the combination breast milk and formula. And I'm like, it's so hard when you you guilt yourself so much of like, oh, should I have made it a whole year? I'm not going to make it a year. And I just am kind of battling with that a little bit, but not quite as much as I battled with it when I gave up breastfeeding with Hannah, with our 2.5-year-old. So, it's just kind of one of those things. It's just, I know I just have to give it a little bit of time and it'll be all right. But right now I'm just feeling a little like, bummer. Okay. So Tonya, can you give us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So again, my name is Tonya Forrest. I have 2 littles. I am married. I live on the coast of North Carolina at the beach. My husband is a offshore captain. We own a charter business, so we take a lot of people offshore fishing for like mahi and everything like that, which is pretty cool. I am a corporate talent manager, so I oversee all hiring for a company as well. But my fun project type of job is pediatric sleep, and it's something that I love to do. I started this because of my sleep journey with my kids. So when I had my daughter, she is almost 4. I was looking at all of these guides online, Google, taking care of babies, moms on call, like all of these guides. And I was like, what the heck does all of this mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what this means as far as what's awake time and what fill a what cup. Like, what are you talking about? I had no idea what any of it meant. And maybe that was just me, like, just being tired. Maybe I just wasn't really reading it as, in depth of what I needed to be reading it in, but I was exhausted. And by 4 months, it left me to make a hard decision. And I ultimately cried it out with my daughter. To be transparent with you, I remember sitting on my couch downstairs and I was bawling my eyes out. I felt like the worst parent ever to my daughter. Like, it was so awful to me. It works for some, right? It just didn't work for me, and it didn't make me feel good. So I knew when I got pregnant with my son, I just wanted something different. I didn't want to be alone in the process. I knew that being a mom to my first was just as important to me to be able to balance going from 1 kid to 2 kids, because that's a whole different ball game. But I found Sleepwise through one of my friends, and she had really great success with it. And ultimately, I started when my son actually I had the call when I was pregnant. And then we started the plan 2 weeks after he was born. And we started implementing small, teeny tiny sleep practices the entire time until he was 12 weeks old. And ultimately, that meant I didn't have to undo any habit, which was great. So he was sleeping through the night at 8 weeks. I was still waking up to pump and everything like that, because I am and was, not really am anymore, but was a breastfeeding mom, pumping mom to both of them. And, I wanted to just be able to have the energy I needed to be able to take care of 2 small children, And I knew if I went through the exact same thing as I did with my daughter, there was going to be no way that I was going to be able to do that. Like, it was just too much. So when I found Sleepwise, I went through that program. I found, it was just incredible. I wanted to join. I wanted to be part of that. I am such an advocate that if you rest well, you are well. And that goes for us. It goes for our littles. It goes for our bigger kids, our toddlers, our school age kids, every single person. If you get sleep, then you are much nicer and you are much funner to be around, right? Like, I know I am. I'm a high need sleep girl. Like, I don't know how some people survive all 5 hours. Can't do it. But I went through a pretty, intense interview process to make sure like I was a right fit for the company. And ultimately they did choose me, and I love it so much. So
That's awesome. I was going to say, like, I know Lisa and I both talked about this. We haven't quite shared this with you, but we're actually next door neighbors. And in just 2 months now, we will have 4 kids under the age of 3, under the age of 2.5. And so we are living and breathing in this. And I got goosebumps when you were like, we tried the cry it out method and we're sitting on our couch bawling. Like, I know Lisa and I both talked about that exact moment for both of us. And it's so hard. It's so intense. It doesn't feel natural. Like, and again, it works for a lot of people, and I respect every approach out there. But that just hit home for me, and as you're going for it, so I'm really excited to learn more about your journey and all your wisdom behind sleep.
A lot of training, a lot of ongoing training. Never stop learning, never stop growing. That's for sure.
How long have you been doing this?
So actually since January, I was in the interview process early last year. So I'm not too far into it, but I have a lot of training under my belt. And we, are really big advocates of continuing education as well. So that's something like, we want to make sure that we are delivering the best service to families, because safety is so important. Well-being is so important, and making sure that our families are comforting and we're comforting them throughout the process. So, it's not something like, you take a class and then you're certified and, just good luck. No. Okay. It's nothing like that. It is hours and hours and hours and hours of education. And it's a big investment for not only, financially, but it's a big investment, to take away that time from your family to get certified. But it was so worth it. And, ultimately, like, I've seen so many clients already, and every single baby has been so different, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Is that a fun challenge for you then? Do you have like a lot of hopefully references or reference guides that you can get to help?
Absolutely. I am, I obviously, like, starting out, you're not given clients. That's just not how it works. People find you, you talk to people, you're socializing, you're talking to your friends and families, and their friend is having sleep issues, and we just have a casual conversation to see if this even works for you. So that's the very first step of this, right? It's free. It's a 20-minute free consultation with me or, another Sleepwise consultant on our team. There are senior consultants as well, which is great, but, there are people that are not at that level yet, but you just have a free conversation with me to just talk about like what's going on in your day to day, what's happening. And then I talk about the process. And if it works and you decide you want to move forward, that's when we take that next step. And I really dive in deep to get to know you even further, get to know your baby further, and make sure there's no health issues and all of those things. We're doing a bedroom assessment where I'm assessing where they're sleeping. I'm assessing how they're feeding, if they're breastfeeding, how long, what's the duration, how many times, the duration.
Wow.
Bottle feeding. Like, there's so many things that go into it to make sure like I provide you the best service possible. But I ultimately treat all of my clients like family, because we talk a lot. So
yeah. So what ages do you serve?
So I am certified from newborn to toddlers. We as Sleepwise can go all the way up to adult level. Wow. I am not certified in adult sleep. So I'm not your person for that. I am totally on my phone right before I go to bed, and that's a no. So I get it. Yeah. It's like, put the phone down. Okay. But I will say a lot of my clients come to me in that newborn time period and then around that 4 month. So that 4 month sleep regression hits hard like a freight train, and they're like, help me, please.
Yeah.
I don't sleep. I need you. Like, what do I have to do? Sign me up, and we take it, we do it, and I love it. It's just
That's
fun.
awesome.
It's so fun. It is challenging though. It's definitely a puzzle piece.
That's really cool. So how often do you typically talk to each of the families, or does it vary based on schedules? How does that work?
Absolutely. So it really just depends on package level. So we have different packages,
Okay.
which is really nice. But when I'm talking to someone from the very start, I want to see what their needs are. Like, are they really sensitive to different aspects? Maybe sensitive to crying, sensitive to being away from their baby, etc. Right? There's a lot of things that I need to take care of mom and dad to make sure that they're okay too. Because ultimately, yes, I am sleep training their baby, but they're doing a lot of the work. I'm guiding them, like I am their guide. So it really just depends on the package. So a lot of my families have booked me for kind of a higher package just because you get full daytime tech support and bedtime tech support. Right. So kind of a day in the life of my world is I'm on the phone a lot.
Ask you, yeah.
I am on the phone a lot. I am looking through their Nanit, through their Owlet. If they don't have that, then that's okay. I am literally just in that sleep space in their life. And I also really study their sleep log. So I have a sleep log that I send to all of my clients that really showcases all of the data points that I need to make the next call to better sleep. So most of the time, the first night's, a little bit different. Really just depends on if they've been held to sleep every night, or if they've been in the snoo, or if they've, been nursed to sleep or bottle fed to sleep, or just co-slept or whatever. There's so many things that determine how easy night one's gonna be. And then, but if it's a little bit harder, it's okay. I mean, that's why I'm here. I will stay up until your baby falls asleep, and that's just what I do.
Wow.
You do that with two kids of your own.
And a corporate job. That's amazing.
And a corporate job.
I don't know. And my husband's gone 99% of the time, let's be honest, because he is offshore all the time. So I am just grateful for my support system because I couldn't do it without them. But I work from home. So that is one really good thing is if I have some downtime, I definitely get my snuggles in, and I put my son to sleep every nap, and that's important to me. So
I respect the hustle. It's awesome to see.
Thank you. Definitely hustling.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I'm already like, oh my gosh. So do you know a lot of the other people who you work with,
Yes.
with Sleepwise?
Mm-hmm.
And so is it kind of like in with any other thing where sometimes the personalities don't necessarily match up, or you say, oh, you know what, I think you might work better with this person, or how do they match people directly to you?
So most of my clients I have found or have come from referrals, which is really nice. Yeah. So I'm very, very active on social media. And I have a pretty good reach as far as who I'm talking with and who I personally know, which is a great thing, which is a good stepping stone to getting started for sure. But it's not, it's all about the right fit, too. If you're not vibing with me, then I will know someone that you will vibe with, or maybe our schedules just don't line up, or, I can't do bedtime support at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock that night. Like maybe it's someone else that will work better with that time zone or etc. Like there's so many different things, that I look at when I am talking to someone, because it's not a sale. It's not about that for me. It's about delivering the best service to these families. And if I'm not the one that's going to do that, then I totally respect that. There's so many amazing people and so many amazing women on our team that I all love and adore. And we're all different, like I am a very loving, caring, I want to take care of you and your family and get you the best sleep you want. And others don't, some clients want someone's like, all right, this is what I need. This is what, a little bit more removed perhaps, and I just want to take care of somebody. So that's just how my personality is.
That's
Definitely.
awesome.
Very cool.
That is so cool.
So maybe it would be curious to know just, I know Lisa and I have gone through our own newborn sleep journeys in its own way, but from your perspective, from a pediatric sleep expert, what are the stages and what are the overview, an overview of the pediatric, especially newborn to toddler? What are those phases? What are the things that you think about from a high level?
There are a ton of different things that I'm looking at, right? Their sleep environment, what is going on in their household. Are they the only child? Are they not? Do they have, a screaming older sister coming barging into the room? Then they've done that. There's just so many things that I'm looking at. It's, as far as phases, early days, you are exhausted, you're up and, you're feeding your baby every 2 to 3 hours around the clock. And that is what it is. But in our newborn plan, I'm working with you every single week, which is great for 12 weeks. And then you have ongoing support for 6 months. So until your baby's 6 months old. And so what's nice about that is, every single week they get a little less tired. They get a little bit more alert. Newborns grow so fast, and I wish they would stay super tiny and snuggly for way longer than than they do. Yeah. But they become alert, and that's when sleep gets harder, right? Around that 8 weeks, 9 weeks, they're like, ooh, okay, I like this. What am I, what's going on over there, and things just become a lot harder. And then you fast forward, you get into that sleep regression at 4 months. And then there's so many other sleep regressions, that's not the only one. Major milestones, you're talking sitting up, rolling over, pulling up in their crib, walking, talking. There's so many things. Potty training, there are literally so many things that happen in these little ones' lives that transform sleep. And at 4 months, the big kicker is that they are connecting sleep cycles. Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest reason you see sleep regression, because those sleep cycles are becoming more adult-like than they were in the early days. So, I could go on and on and on about phases, sure. But there's so many. So, it's really interesting. And the one thing I think is important to know is that each regression and phase can happen. It doesn't have to happen right at 4 months, right? It can happen a week before or 2 weeks later. Babies don't have a timeline. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of books and guides, because it's not a one size fit all. Babies are not a one size fit all, just like me and you aren't, right? They are humans. They're not robots. They are not going to sleep at this little sample schedule. That's not going to happen more than likely, right?
Totally. There's these schedules that are so tricky to you want to follow them, and then you feel guilty because you're not following them. But, I try first to listen to my own child, and I think that's important. But then when the sleep goes wrong in the middle of the night,
100%.
you're like, well, it's because I didn't follow the schedule, right? You just are always questioning cause and effect.
Dr. Google comes out so
Oh my
hard,
gosh.
and you're like scrolling, and then you're either on Google or you're on Amazon Prime, and you're trying to order like a new sleep sack or whatever, and then all of a sudden you've spent so much money and your brain power, and it's just crazy. So, I get it. Just, that's why I really love what I do, is because I get to really get to know a family and get to know their baby. And it's not what, Sarah's baby down the road did. It's literally, what did your baby do? What is your baby doing? Where is your baby at? And meeting your baby where they're at, not someone else's, because they could be completely different, like they're at a different place in their journey. But it's all about, like, I want to make sure that you have that one-on-one support, which ultimately, like, I'm sorry, but all moms need support, without judgment, right? Like, education comes behind what I talk about, and that's also important, like, I want to make sure your baby's safe ultimately, and that you're okay too.
Definitely. One question that's always come up in mind when it comes to like ages and their milestones, like, does gestational age actually make a difference, right? Like a baby that was born a couple weeks early, a couple weeks late, like, to your point, it's not going to always land on that. And of course, sometimes you have a month early, something like that. How does that affect their sleep schedule, if anything?
So it really only determines or changes per age. Like it like once they get to a certain amount of months, they're not kind of in that category anymore. You know what I mean? And it's eventually like they've caught up pretty much, right? Like they're on Earth side, they're growing, they're developing, everything like that. So it really just depends solely on the months and the time frame that they have been alive. And
Earth side. Yeah,
you know what
totally.
I mean? Like Earth side.
and then you said that all babies are different, right? So this is one of the questions that one of the moms had, was like, how does are babies different naturally? Like, are some of them really good sleepers, really bad sleepers? Could it just be the kid, not necessarily the program, if you may?
So I think that, there's a lot of factors, like I've said, right? And the reason I say that is I won't know specifically if it's just your child and their sleep needs. Like maybe they're just a low sleep need individual.
Sure.
That's okay. But I won't know that until we're in the throes of it. But my main goal is to have them be an independent sleeper. So even if their sleep needs are lower, maybe they don't need as much daytime sleep as your friend does. Maybe they're maxed out on their age-appropriate daytime sleep, right? But if your child specifically just has lower sleep needs, maybe those nighttime stretches, those nap times, like all of that will just look a little bit different. But regardless if they're naturally a good sleeper or not, it's important to still have those independent sleep skills. And we talk about it as far as like the journey to sleep, right? Like what you do to fall asleep might be different than what I do, right? And like my daughter, for example, she loved her passy, and I didn't know that was like, whatever. So now that she doesn't have it, she does something completely different. Like she likes to sleep like with her arms like this, and she rubs her head to fall asleep, right? Okay, that's cool. Let's go, sis. It's fine. My son will stick his thumb in his mouth and shake and be on his tummy and shake his his little booty back and forth until he falls asleep, right?
Oh.
Some of my clients, they like to hold the slat on the crib. Some like to rub their sheet or sleep or suck on their sleep sack, whatever the case may be. But they have figured out how to get themselves to sleep. Whereas like someone that has a sleep prop, they use that to fall asleep, whether it's mom or, you know, a passy or something that rocks them, etc.
Are there, and I'm sorry if you said this already, but are there like, I know every kid's different, but like general rules that you would suggest for like a new mom putting a nursery together? Like, are there like certain things that you say, absolutely do this or absolutely don't do this?
Absolutely. I follow, I am certified in safe sleep as well because I feel like that's extremely important.
Great.
I look back on pictures with my daughter and I'm like, thank you for being here today because there were, oh my gosh, like, no, it just scares me so bad. Even once I was in the certification process, I was like sick to my stomach. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea all of these things could harm her. No clue.
Oh my goodness.
You know, because moms of moms and moms are, you know, or whomever, like, yeah, I use this and they're sitting still and they're sleeping great, whatever. No, I did not know half the stuff I know now. And so when I'm talking to someone that is expecting, we definitely talk about safe sleep. And that's why even if your baby is here and they're born, I'm going over a nursery assessment, right? So I don't want to see anything in the crib, nothing in the crib, no mesh bumpers, no blankets, no loveys, like no strings on passies. Like there are so many little things. The cord from your sound or, you know, from your sound machine and your monitor, like there's so many things that I don't want to see. And that's what I'm looking for because keeping your baby safe is so important. And I will always reiterate that because it's the truth, right? Like that is your baby. And I'm treating it, you know, just like I would my own at this point, you know, because there's so many recommendations out there as far as like, you need this, you need that. And babies don't really need a whole lot. Save your money and get a sleep consultant and you'll be so happy about it.
I talk about this a lot on this podcast. I always think about moms of, you know, past eras, right? And there was no all these fancy sleep sacks back in the day, like, you know, all these different tools, like, and civilization still exists today, and they've all made it through these newborn sleep phases, you know, with basic things. So it's awesome to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, you know, things as far as, you know, ultimately we want to avoid SIDS. And that is something that back then they didn't really have as much knowledge as we do today, you know, and that's just like so many other things in this world that we have grown to know and learn more things, right? Which is beautiful. But, you know, that number has dropped and it's a good thing. We want that number to continue to drop and we just want to keep your baby safe and whatever works for you and your family, that is your business. And if it works, I'm fully supportive of it. But if it's not working, that's when I come into play.
Yeah.
If you want to change something and you're exhausted because you were up all night and you need some help or just some guidance, that's when you call me.
That's awesome.
Or if you're a new mom, you're expecting and you're like, I don't even know what to do here, that's also when you call me because I'm more than happy to help and talk you through it.
I didn't know much about the sleep training concept early on, right? And you type in Dr. Google sleep training, you get like you said, some of the big three around like moms on call, taking care of babies, cried out, Ferber method, whatever it might be. So I guess my question would be, would you be able to give just like a general overview of the different approaches to sleep training? And then maybe we end with where kind of Sleepwise falls into that.
So there's a lot of different methods, and the internet stresses me out when it comes to guidance because it's so all over the place,
Right.
to put it lightly, right? But there's so many different like recommendations, and I said it earlier, like those are truly recommendations.
Right.
It's not, they don't know your baby at all. Like they don't even know your baby's name or when they were born. Or if they have reflux or anything, right? So that's like one of those things, like what you're going to get from the top three, they're not looking at. And as far as like cried out, that's literally just leaving your baby until they fall asleep and they're crying without you. No soothing, no intervention, nothing, right? And we don't do that at Sleepwise. We are going to soothe your baby. We are going to make sure your baby's needs are completely met. And we are going to make sure that they have everything that they need prior to sleep and during sleep. So if it's taking them a little bit harder to learn those independent sleep skills, that's okay, because you have someone there guiding you and coaching you through everything day to day.
That's awesome.
It's a lot. I mean, there's so many different approaches ultimately, and it's, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Very overwhelming.
It really is.
And it's like, what's the right thing? That's always a question that mom guilt comes into play. Like, am I doing the right thing for my baby, or should I, continue to do X, Y, and Z and just still with the exhaustion or, whatever. But there's, we're not harming your baby by no means. Like, we are making sure that they're okay. And people like me, I am like such a mother goose. Like, I just want to take care of you, and I will make sure that everyone's safe and, comfortable, more than anything in this world. So even if it takes, like, in our plan, like an extra couple days or, an extra week to get your baby where you want them to be, meet their sleep goals, that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, totally. One more question I just thought about is I was like mentally prepared for a nighttime journey in sleeping, but I wasn't quite prepared for napping. And again, starting at newborn, you're doing that so frequently. And then, it slowly gets better and better. And now I'm at the point where I can just follow routine and put her down and she goes to sleep. And I'm like, this is amazing. But it would be 45 minutes of committing my time to try to get her down for like 10 minutes of sleep, right? And you just feel so defeated, and you're doing that multiple times a day. So I guess how when you of course you don't know specifics, those types of things, but when you work with clients, I'm guessing you talk about nighttime sleep and nap times as well. Like, what's some general guidance for daytime sleep?
Absolutely. Naps are a beast, and it is something like these little angels are giving everybody a run for their money when it comes to naps. But naps ultimately take practice, right? It definitely takes practice, and everything needs to be lined up perfectly for them to be able to consolidate that sleep and get the rest that they need during the day. Short naps, there's a lot that goes into that. Are they independent sleepers? How's their environment in their room? Is it completely dark? Is it not? Have they been, there's a lot of things like, have they been fed? How much have they been fed? Is there a feed to wake association? There's so many things that, come into play as far as a short nap or naps in general. And even like thinking about how much daytime sleep did they have, or how much overnight sleep did they have? Was it restorative sleep or was it not? Did they ever get into that deep sleep? you never know, right? Like that's something like when you're in the day of it, you're like, okay, I have no idea. I'm tired. I need you to just take a 2-hour nap and we're all going to be good to go. Right. And it's like, it's hard. And that's what I love about the daytime tech support, is just being able to be there for someone to get naps figured out during that first week, because they can get figured out ultimately. I love this.
Okay.
It is truly like, it just gives me so much joy. You know,
Aw. I mean, you're changing people's
Totally.
lives. I get it.
yeah. And it's like, we go through hard times together. We go through really amazing times together where we're both celebrating. We're sending GIFs of everybody
Aw.
jumping up and down, celebrating, like, oh my gosh, did you see her do that? Oh my God. You know, it is like we are best friends and like cheering everybody on. But I'm also here to like, you know, guide and like push parents just a little bit, just so they're, you know, learning the process, right? But, you know, I get a lot of joy from the feedback that I get. And it might just be one single text saying, my baby slept through the night last night. I woke up and I had no idea that I needed that sleep. I feel so much better because of this. She's so much happier. He's so much happier.
That has to be so rewarding.
It is. And it's just so cool. It's like, it just makes me happy. It makes my heart feel like, you know, daytime tech support weeks are a little crazy in my household, just because, like, you know, I have my son, he's 19 months old. I have my daughter who's almost 4. And you're like, you know, there's a lot going on, right? But it's so worth it. Yeah. And I have the kids involved too, you know, like we're watching the monitor together and I'm like, what do you see? You know, like we make it, you know. And my daughter the other day, she was pretending that she was on the phone with a client and she said, okay, it's time to go to sleep now. It was the cutest thing. Like, you listen to me so much, and it just like solidified, like, you know, one, they do listen to you, so watch what you say, but 2, you must be doing something right if like they are taking care of this little baby doll and they're trying to teach that baby doll how to sleep. You know what I mean? It's kind of cute.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet that's I don't know if you haven't started in January. Have you had people, I don't know if you call it graduate or
yes, I have
not need you as oh, well, that has to be a little bit emotional.
It's so emotional when I have to click out of their monitor. I'm like, okay, you're fine. We're all fine.
I can do this.
You know, like, I'm gonna miss you, but it's so cool because, you know, I still keep in touch with them, and you know, it's,
good.
Yeah, and we're talking a lot just because they're like, oh, I have a friend that really needs you. Are you okay? You know, what's your calendar look like, etc. And so, and I like to check up on my clients and, you know, my past clients. And what's really neat about Sleepwise is that we have an after program too. So, you know, I'm here to help get your baby the first step, right? We are sleep training ultimately, right? We're making sure that they have independent sleep skills. You're good to go. You feel supported. You have the information you need for the next XYZ months, right? But we have an extra layer where we have senior consultants in a really amazing group where whether you have some one-off days or you're about to go travel or, you know, whatever the case may be, we're also there to help support and guide those one-offs too. So if you have questions or if you just need a little bit of guidance or what do I do here? We're going to be, we're going to be on a flight for 15 hours. I don't know what to do. What does that look like? That's what we're here for. And we're not just going to check you off. You graduated, goodbye. That is just not my style. And it's not Sleepwise style. So.
Nice. That's really reassuring too, because it has to be for the parents a little bit like, kind of like leaving the hospital when you had all the nurses around to help you. And then all of a sudden you go home and you're left to your own devices and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so terrifying.
100.
So that's got to be nice to know that they have somebody to come back and lean on, because like we've had, my daughter was an excellent sleeper, and now, she's gotten into a bad spot, and it would be nice to know, like, oh, not to worry. We know where to go and where our resources are of, helping us get back on track. So that's really nice. You stay with them. And even if not on a professional, basis, but like hey, we were with you in the beginning and I care about your baby,
Yeah,
so that's
it's
great.
really neat. Like when they're like, all right, we're looking to get pregnant, after this baby, turns 1 or 1.5, can I, go ahead and like secure you? And I'm like, absolutely. Like you are part of me now. So whether you like it or not, like we are tight. And, you kind of, when you're talking to somebody that much, you really get to know them and get to know like how they operate, how, what works for them, or what their emotional level is to all of this, etc. And that's something that's really nice, is just gaining that level of trust and support with each other.
That's really cool. That sounds like an awesome program, and I can understand where you would fall in love with that feeling of knowing I'm not alone. I'm, kind of like a parenting coach almost. So that's wonderful.
It is, especially with our toddler program. I mean, toddlers are their own little like beast in itself, right? They are just resilient and a little bit mean and a little bit sweet. Like they are true Sour Patch Kids, right? Like,
yes, they are.
And so especially with like our toddler program, it is a lot of fun. It's very interactive, but it's all about holding boundaries and setting expectations, but also really celebrating wins and praises. So it's kind of coaching the parents more so than the toddler for that particular program. So it's kind of cool just because, you have some toddlers just leave their room and just come and say like, hey, I want some apple juice at like 3:00 in the morning. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? Go to sleep.
I feel that hard right now. I'm feeling that.
Right. So there's so many things. And, I talk a lot about newborns and infant sleep on my social media, but I can definitely send some resources over as far as like to work on that for you. And if you ever need to talk to somebody else, I'm definitely here to talk about it.
Definitely. I love it. I was just perusing the website, the Sleepwise website, and it's pretty cool. It looks like you guys even have a potty training program, which is really cool.
I know.
Lots of great resources.
I'm about to put my son through it, and I didn't do that with Harper. I had no idea that existed, and I'm really excited to like kind of live train it, or like not live feed it by no means, but like
well,
take everybody through the journey. Very very soon with my son. So we're working on some speech stuff right now, but after he nails that and he can tell me what he wants, like we are good to go. We are rolling with this. So I am done with diapers.
A whole nother episode is on potty training. What age? Can I ask what age you're starting with him, or what's your?
So I started with my daughter at 3, and what I really want to do is start at like 2.5 with him. More than likely, like winter break is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
but he had literally like 12 ear infections this year. Thanks to my daughter for bringing home God knows what to our household from school. Thank you. And he just we just had to do tubes with him, which ear infections can disrupt sleep, you guys. Just
Lisa is nodding because she knows this way too well.
Both of my kids have tubes.
Yeah, and it really has delayed his speech a lot, and so we're just playing catch up at this point. So once we're good there, I am full blown. We're ready. Yes. I'm ready.
Isn't it? I mean, Hannah, we're working on it with Hannah, and it's like there are days that it's so wonderful and she does so great, and then we regress back, and you're like, no, this was so great. It's so. it's fun to watch these milestones for sure. We talk about that. I talk about that all the time because Hannah is the oldest of all of the kids on the podcast. And so I'm like, every stage is my favorite stage with her, like watching her learn how to do so many cool things, but they all come with their challenges. And that's certainly something that, like you said, she's learning new things so quickly, and her mind just has to be nonstop. Right. So, trying to figure out why she's waking up in the middle of the night and having to come talk to us about whatever it is she has to talk to us about. It's her brain's growing, and we should feel so lucky, but it's also like, yes, I need my sleep. I am a big time sleeper. I will fall asleep mid conversation because I'm a good sleeper. So that's another reason too that I was a little bit like, okay, yes, I feel guilty about stopping breastfeeding, but I'm also like, I need my sleep, and pumping in the middle of the night was getting really, really exhausting and hard. So, I know that I'm a better parent with sleep. And I think that's really cool to see that there's adult trainings too.
If I would just chill out and stay off my phone for a second before I go to bed, I think I would, be fine. But I've been so tired lately just because I have so much going on. So,
yeah, you do.
But, I think it's really important for all moms to know, your journey does not have to be the same as someone else's, and it's not going to be the same. And, like you said, with pumping, it's really hard to stay pumping through the night when your baby's starting to sleep through the night. And it really takes a lot of commitment, but it's also okay if it doesn't work out, because you have to meet yourself too and where you're at. And, ultimately, I nursed my daughter for 18 months, and then I was like, all right, I can do this, but it was a lot. I mean, and going in it with my son, I was like, I'm giving it 12 months, and my supply dipped so much at that 9-month mark. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay.
Good for you.
It's fine. And, I still was able to give him some breast milk and, for the remainder of, until he turned 12 months. But every single person's journey is different, and you just have to meet yourself where you're at and then where your baby's at. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, because I think there is a lot of societal pressures on a lot of different things, right? Like we had a big crazy time talking about C-sections and vaginal births and how that really affected us, and how where we live in a very granola, a little bit of a hippie town. And so we definitely have different passions and views on things than I think a lot of other places. And so, we're very, very lucky to find a good support system where people have really similar values at times. But also, like you said, it's then easy to compare yourself. Like Michelle and one of the other girls on our podcast, well, both the other girls, all their kids are within 3 weeks of each other. And so it's constantly they jump off the podcast and it's like, wait, why isn't my kid doing that? Why is your kid doing that? And as much as you don't want to compare and you want to support each other, that's the world we live in, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think that's great that you really focus on, hey, just because even from kid to kid, even from your son to your daughter, or my daughter to my other daughter, totally different children. And even though they both came out of us and out of me and have the same parents, totally different kids.
Totally different.
Yes.
My little guy is some wild, sweet, snuggly, driven, crazy man. My daughter's this perfect little angel, just so sweet with a little bit of sass. I'm like, I kind of like that. So, but they're so different, he'll be jumping off a table and you're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Oh my gosh.
So they're all different. Sleep, how they grow. That's another big thing. The growth chart. Don't get me started on that.
I know. We've talked about that, man. I wish they would just tell you, hey, I'm concerned about this, or I'm not concerned, and don't give me that chart, because I am a competitive person. So then when I get home and I get that chart, yes, I get home and I'm like, oh my gosh, she was 78th percentile and now she's the 68th. What's happening? What am I doing wrong? Oh my gosh, it's because I ate that one Oreo and gave her breast milk, wasn't it? It's like outrageous. It's just it's unfortunate that we set up that way, because it's like, even with my younger daughter, her weight percentage keeps dropping. And I'm like, oh, should I be concerned about this? And my doctor's like, nope, I'm not concerned. I'm like, so why do you even show it to me? What's the point?
I know.
It's just, it seems so silly, but yeah. So I can imagine that you do see a lot of different parents, a lot of different styles, and a lot of you have to be really open-minded. Do you feel like meeting with different people has changed your perspective on parenting and at all, or?
It has. And especially like if someone invites me into their home through like their Wi-Fi camera, that takes a lot of trust. But like I catch really sweet glimpses of certain things. If it alerts me a sound's going on, like I'm going to look and just make sure, like, is the baby crying, or like what's happening? Like that's just kind of what I do. But it's made me, like, I point out those things, like when they've done a really good job and it just touched me. I'm like, wow, you're a great mom, and that's just like, you want to be able to point those things out. And same with like the dads, like the dads have shown up, and I'm like, you guys are freaking amazing. Like the amount of support, I mean, they're sitting behind their wife, they're rubbing their back through all of this. They're, they're involved, and they're shushing, and they're doing the things that we are coaching them to do, and not just sitting on the sidelines. Like, you've got this, mom. Like, no, it's a true partnership. And, it's just been beautiful to watch, and it's made me really focus in on the good parts of what I do for my kids, and not just be like, oh, I got really upset today because like there was a bucket of water all over my floor from outside.
Right.
Yep.
Like,
yep,
and clean that up. Right. And it's just like kind of taking a step back and just being more forgiving to yourself than judgmental, because there's so much judgment out there, and there's so much like hate and everything like that. And that's just like, we don't need any more of that. And so when we're comparing, when we're, we're ultimately doing that to ourselves, and that's why, like, I really love, like, if someone really wants to sleep train their baby, some do not, and that's okay. But if you do, then having that one-on-one support truly does make a difference, because like, you don't just have to figure it out by yourself. You have someone that's not going to judge you, not what you've done in the past, right? This is all about where we're going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help you going forward, right? And it's not, oh, well, I don't know why you use that method, or why you have been using this product, or, whatever. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just not what I'm about.
That's what you need. You don't need people to dwell on the past. You need people to say, you know what? The past is the past. Let's move forward, and let's get y'all sleeping. That's what I would imagine. That's what I would want.
It's like, why be so hateful? And like, we don't have to be hateful to each other, and we can be supportive and not cast judgment, and we'll be surprised how nicer everything gets.
Yes. +1. Absolutely.
Totally. Well, this has been awesome. And I mean, yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're so welcome.
We're gonna wrap with what we wrap with everybody. What is your best parenting advice, or the best parenting advice you have been given?
Definitely forgive yourself. I'm a big advocate of that. And, you can be the best version of yourself and still there's something to improve, right? But just being able to forgive yourself and support yourself through all of the ups and downs that parenthood comes at you. I mean, it's rough out there, right? It is just parenting. There's no manual. And if you don't have forgiveness and, just move on from that moment or that day, then you're going to struggle, because
That's
you
great
can
advice.
you can dwell on the day, or you can dwell on that moment for the rest of the day, and all that's doing is hurting you even more and your child. So just have a little bit of forgiveness.
I love that.
That's great advice. 100%. I mean, parenting is just a subsequent of like thousands and thousands of moments, and they come and they pass so quickly, and you have to let your thoughts kind of mimic that, because it's so easy to dwell.
Yeah.
And when things don't go your way, being able to forgive yourself. So that's great advice. I love that.
Things do not go your way a lot of the time.
No.
Not with
Nope.
parenting.
Not at all.
I think it's such an interesting thing. I look back at pictures of my first daughter and I'm like, I don't remember so much. And it's like, what's crazy about that? I dwelled on so much in the beginning, and I look back at those pictures and I don't remember any of it. So what was the point of stressing myself out, worrying about that thing when it didn't end up mattering? And it's like the same thing, like Hannah, I was convinced had acid reflux, and that was something that for 2 weeks I just dwelled on that, and that was never even a thing. It was never even a thing on the radar. It's just so funny how you don't want to mess these poor kids up, and it's like but you also have to give yourself grace, and I love that.
Really.
I think that's such great advice. So yeah, thank you so much, Tonya.
What's the best way for listeners to get in touch?
Absolutely. You can definitely follow sleepwise.Tonya Raye, or you can go directly to Sleepwise Consulting's website. I am very accessible through Instagram, though. I love Instagram. I'm not a TikToker. I don't know anything about it, so I just don't have the capacity, and I'm not taking on something else I'm, not going to take it on. So
you don't need anything else on your plate.
Seriously.
Goodness, girl.
Maybe one day, but not right now.
Yeah.
So I know Instagram. I'm going to stick to that for a little bit. So definitely there's a link to booking directly with me. Definitely send me a message. I love hearing from people through my direct messages, just because I learn a little bit more right before we talk, which is really cool. I want to know what your baby's name is, and where you're from, and what you're doing, and what you do for a living, and why me, right? And so there's a lot of things I like to get to know before we even get started.
That's awesome.
I we'll link to your stuff in our podcast description so that people can come find you, because I think people are going to be lining up for you after that. You're gonna have to start turning people away. You're gonna have too many clients, because this is awesome.
I love it.
Great program.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And I want to, like I've said 100 times, I need to meet you and your baby where you're at before anything. So.
And that wraps up another episode of Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood. Thank you again so much for listening to us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving us 5 stars so other mothers out there like you can find us and listen. If you would like, you could follow us on any of our socials at Mom Jeans the podcast. If you have questions, would like to send us your birth story, or give us suggestions or things that you would like to hear, please email us at hello@momjeansthepodcast.com. See you next week.